So, big round of applause for the bravery of Maggie kicking it off tonight. Maggie!
It's funny how so often in life things just recur and repeat themselves. And one spring I went on a long car trip, and I bet that the location is really different from anything you're thinking about, remembering, or imagining right now. And I bet my fellow travelers were really different than anybody you're thinking about, imagining, or remembering right now. Why? Because I was in northwest China in a car with 6 people traveling through a desert. And we went for hundreds of miles. And it's kind of monotonous. We were in the Gobi Desert in Xinjiang. And so what do when you're in a monotonous car ride? You tell stories. Everybody else in the car except me was Asian and had grown up in Asia, almost all of them Chinese, one Japanese colleague. And I began to tell them, as the representative North American Canadian, what teenagers do on when you're fooling around with cars, and what do you do when you're a teenager? When I was, you'd see how many people you could stuff into a Volkswagen Beetle and still have it drivable. You have to imagine the cultural connotations of telling this to 5 other Asians and their thoughts of why do you do that. But we got out of the desert, we went up, we were heading to our destination in the Altai Mountains, right where China, Russia, Mongolia meet. We're going to go to a beautiful lake, and that lake was rumored to have big red fish, called in Chinese, the big red fish. And if you got up on the hills outside the lake, it was rumored that on a sunny day in the afternoon, the fish would surface, and you could see one whole end of the lake turn orange, and we wanted to do that. So we got into our lodgings, and then all of a sudden the sun came out, and it was the afternoon already, and we were really paying attention. We could get up to the fish watching pavilion and back down before dark, and we said, let's go. And we didn't go back to our cabins or anything. We just jumped into our big SUV. We drove to along the dirt roads, along the pathway, this sort of undulating grassy hill. We got to the base of the path to the fish watching pavilion. And there was a log hut there, sort of sunken in the ground because it was really cold up in the mountains, sod roof. The old man who lived there said, don't go up in those hills, there's wolves, and you won't be back before dark. But we didn't care. We were going up, and I was with my travel adventure friend Wang Wei, and we headed up. Now this path wasn't that long, and it was kind of at the limit of what I felt comfortable with, and I'm not athletic, but we made it up, and we were only 50 yards from the fish watching pavilion, and all of a sudden the sky got dark. The wind started howling, the rain started pouring, it got as slippery as hell, and there was no way we could even see the lake, but there was no way we could go back down that rocky face we had come up. But my friend Wang Wei, don't worry, I'll get you out of here. He's my adventure travel buddy. And he said, I know how to get out of here. We'll go around the back. It'll be a lot longer, but it's grassy, and there'll be little trails, and it'll be safe. So we started, and the grass and the little goat trails were as slippery as hell. We're all slippery and sliding, and we walked for hours, and it got dark, and we were freezing. It was so cold. We were so underprepared. And as we're going down, he said, I'm going to cut across diagonally with our local guide here to go find our driver in the car. You guys, you Batesies, just go straight. Get to the dirt road and turn left, and we'll pick you up. And we did this, and we went on our own in the dark, and we got to the dirt road, and it was as slippery as hell. You just couldn't keep your feet under you. It was just so slippery. And we walked, and we walked, and we couldn't stop, because if you stopped even for a second, you were cold beyond belief. And they didn't come and get us. And we kept walking, and we ran out of road. We got to the end, but there was another dirt road, so we turned left again, hoping we were heading back towards our lodge. And then we were going up a hill, and we saw headlights coming towards us, and we thought, oh great, but then it wasn't our big SUV, it was a little tiny green army Jeep, and it was stuffed with 6 full-size Mongolian men, and they offered to rescue us. and for a reward. And I'm an economist, and I thought about it really quick. I'm worth it. And so we got in. Now there's 9 of us in the little tiny green army Jeep. And my Japanese friend is wearing a red jacket, her arms stuffed against the window. And they take us, my Chinese colleague tells them, please take us back to our lodging in Chinese. And they say, sure, and they take us, and he wasn't making sense. He was so cold, he was hypothermic, he wasn't making sense. And they took us to some place, it was not the place on the lake. So I had to take over and tell them in Chinese, please take us to the place on the lake with the big red fish and the pier. And they turned us around, and just then Wang Wei and our driver saw the red jacket jammed against the window, and they tried to rescue us. But our rescuers were not going to give up without their reward, so they insisted on taking us back. But eventually, we got reunited with Wang Wei, our driver, and more importantly, we got reunited with some warm and dry clothes.